Welcome to the First Baptist on Fifth podcast. I'm Kyle Caudle, Associate Pastor for Youth, Missions, and Adults, and host of this special podcast series to help guide you through the season of Lent. I'll be interviewing folks from our church to discuss devotional practices, and today I'm joined by Joy Gabmill. Joy is an instruction librarian at Wake Forest Z. Smith Reynolds Library and a member of the Conversations class at First on Fifth. Joy is also the co-chair of the adult ministry team who is compiling these Lenten devotions. Joy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, Joy, I wanted to start just talking a little bit about the season of Lent, and I wondered if there was a particular practice or element about Lent that you find meaningful and informative to your spiritual life.
So I love this whole season of being somber and kind of seriously taking your faith and just resting in God's presence. And so I start every morning. I have a morning devotion anyway, but I always use Lenten devotionals, and I use Kate Bowler devotionals, and then now I'm using ours from the church as well. And I just think that's wonderful. I had one Lent several years ago when I gave up Starbucks coffee for Lent, and I never went back. And this year, my big thing is that I gave up Facebook on the first day of Lent, and that has really helped me. And so I think it's going to be the same thing. I'm not sure yet, but I think I'm not going back.
Yeah. So you kind of, as a practice, you mentioned, I guess, what you could consider part of fasting or giving something up. Has that changed over the years in your approach to even this season, or was it a time that this was new to you?
So I grew up in a very conservative Baptist church, and no, we didn't have Lent when I was growing up. I can't remember actually when I started practicing Lent as part. It might have even been at this church, but probably before that. I just can't remember right now. So I can't remember what I was saying before that. So tell me.
You were talking how you grew up in a tradition that did not practice it, and then you just remember at some point you started to. It was interesting. I was interviewing David Hughes, the former pastor here, in a previous podcast, and he was saying it actually wasn't practiced at this church until he was the pastor here. So that I learned something new about our history, and that may have been in the 90s or something, early in his ministry when they started with an Ash Wednesday service, and then, it's become a little more elaborate now that we have series and devotions and things like that on it. So speaking of devotions, you're part of the adult ministry team here, and we're still figuring out what that team is and that kind of thing. But part of figuring that out, I think, has been this openness to, hey, let's try something as a church. Let's try putting together some Lenten devotions. And you and I, at least, have already read these devotions as they've been submitted, because we'll put them together, edit them. And is there something about this process that's really stood out to you in evaluating and reading the devotions this year?
Absolutely. It's such a gift because each one is like a gem. I feel like people, when they write, they're given a piece of their heart. They create their own pieces of art with each one. And I've been amazed at how common a lot of the themes are in this church. Like, we're very different, and our voices are different, but there's a common thread that runs through of grace and of, God's love and a care for community and justice. It's really a beautiful thing, and this has been a fun process for me.
Yeah, a lot of them have been very personal to people. What was the phrase you said? They share a piece of their heart. Right. And I've learned stories about different writers, and I'm like, I didn't know that story before. And they incorporated that into their devotion, and now anyone in our church who reads that, as I hit my mic, anyone in the church who reads that now knows more about somebody else. So that's kind of one of the takeaways I've thought about, is like it connects community in a way that maybe we didn't even intend for.
Right.
So just before we get into your devotion, I want to talk about, and you are a devotional reader and a devotional writer. Mm-hmm. So what makes a good devotion?
I think something that makes me think, it makes me ponder, and something I can just hold, for the rest of the day. I don't need a long-term whatever. I just need some assurance to get through that one day, or one little push,
Yeah.
So I always like an artistic little spin on it. If we have that to it, that's like a super bonus. And so I appreciate that. If there's a piece of art, or if there's some of the ones we've used have used words from hymn. Some of the devotionals from our series have used hymns, and that's enough to get me through a whole day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can think about one good thing during the day, that's probably enough,
Right.
And so I think one of the values, I think, and the limit was it needs to be 300 to 350 words. And, some of the people we have writing these are preachers and that are used to a lot more words. So to get to say something profound and brief, it's a gift.
Right.
And I've been just impressed at what you can say in just so few words.
Yes.
And so that's been a value I think I've seen. I also think, it needs to do one thing well. It doesn't have to do 100 things. So what's the scripture? What's one takeaway?
Right.
There's probably 100 takeaways. If you gave it to 100 different people, they would have 100 different devotions.
Right.
But what's one takeaway that day? And so I'm interested in your takeaway today.
Okay.
With you've read a couple devotions. We're going to focus on one that will come out on, I believe, March 17th.
Yes.
And that will be St. Patrick's Day.
Correct.
And the scripture selected for that devotion is Psalm 23. Verses 1 through 3, and I'll begin with a scripture reading, and then Joy, you can read your devotion from Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake.
Last summer, Chris and I had the opportunity to visit Ireland, which could be the setting of any Psalm 23 stained glass window in the world. While there, we visited a couple of the many churches St. Patrick established during his 40 years of missionary work on the island. Did you know St. Patrick was not Irish? St. Patrick was born in Great Britain, but at the age of 16, he was captured and sold as a slave in Ireland. For the next 6 years, he was forced to work as a shepherd. When he finally escaped and returned home, he vowed never to return. But a few years later, he had a vision of the people of Ireland urging him to return to share with them the mercy and love of Christ. He studied Christianity, he became a bishop at the age of 43, and he returned to the land of his pagan captors. The gospel of St. Patrick, shared with the people of Ireland, was not rooted in books, but rather in experience. During 6 years in captivity, St. Patrick drew close to the Good Shepherd, and he also learned the Irish language and culture. His painful past helped him to convert an entire country to Christianity. Today, St. Patrick's Day is celebrated around the world with green rivers, massive parades, and wild parties. In Ireland, Christians attend church services, and Lenten restrictions are lifted for the day in the celebration of this remarkable saint. Have a blessed St. Patrick's Day.
So your devotion was based on Psalm 23.
Yes.
It's a familiar one, maybe the most familiar psalm.
Yes.
Has that psalm been particularly important to you?
All my life. Like, my father was a Baptist minister, and I can hear him reading that at funerals. He would
In the King
usually-
James, I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah, that's usually how we say it at funerals.
In
I'm
the
looking
King-
at this version.
and
I'm
it's
like,
really
that's a little
beautiful
different.
in the
Yeah.
King James.
It
It's
is.
hard to beat it. But yes, and we had it cross-stitched in our house. You know, it was embroidered in our house in a picture, and so it's always been an image. And when I was growing up, it was one of the windows. We had stained glass in the windows where, when I grew up, and one of the most vivid images was of, Jesus holding the sheep, and so that the whole Psalm 23 thing has been ingrained in me for as long as I can remember.
See, it's been with you a long time.
Yes.
Do you read it in 2026 in a different way, maybe than you did even just a few years ago? Or does it speak to you differently?
Yeah. I would say that I just cherish it even more. It's even more peaceful for me. And I will say that in this devotion, I talk about Ireland, but there are just sheep everywhere. I mean, it's a real thing, and you can't help but think, man, this looks just like Psalm 23. I mean, that's one of the things that kind of comes to your mind, that image. And so, I'm not sure that I could appreciate it as much, but I remember being sad at funerals and hearing this and really being comforted by it. And I think that it's still a very comforting psalm.
Yeah, I agree. So you also reference St. Patrick's Day in your devotion, and of course you have to reference your time in Ireland. And I'm interested to know, how did being in Ireland impact you spiritually? And had you been to Ireland? Is this your first time?
That was my first time. We were there for a retreat with Gareth Higgins and I cannot think of his name right now. I'm so sorry. But anyway, we were on a retreat for peace and reconciliation. And so the very first part of it, we spent in Kilkeel, which is we were in Northern Ireland the whole time. It was so beautiful. And we learned, it's so tragic at the same time, It's this beautiful, beautiful land that has had so much heartache, and I learned a lot. I just learned. It's kind of a mix. I'm not sure that I'm even answering whatever the question.
Yeah.
I
So I even remember this was years ago. Chris Gamble, your husband, had mentioned to me he had read some book called The Celtic Way of Evangelism. Have you ever talked about that with him?
I don't
So. And I just remember him telling me it was about that story, kind of like you referenced, like so Patrick came over to Ireland and learned the ways of the people, didn't try to forcefully convert anybody, but modeled it through being with people. It's like a presence, not just kind of you need to come be like me. He wanted to learn them and incorporate. So there's like the legend, whether this is true, he used the shamrock to teach the Trinity. And, you hear stories like that.
Right.
And I just remember that book was kind of important for him just to kind of rethink, maybe we do evangelism in a different way. That's not so much like we have to tell you something. No, we're going to learn from you, and then maybe you find Jesus along the way, but we're not going to like force Jesus on you. Yeah.
His time, St. Patrick's time in Ireland, working as a shepherd, really prepared him in so many ways, because he came to understand the religion that was there, which is Druid religion, and that was a focus on the earth and the soul. And so like the St. Patrick's cross has a sun on it, which they worship the sun, but he incorporated the sun with, with the cross, and so they were able to make these connections. So the sacredness of the earth never went away, and the sacredness of people never went away. You know, it's like St. Patrick received a lot of criticism from the imperial Christianity at the time because he didn't follow the patriarchal rules that had gone everywhere else. But it kind of let loose in Ireland, and it you know St. Patrick was not quite as 100% into Celtic Christianity as what came later, but it is said that like St. Patrick was the one who baptized St. Bridget's mother, and so there's this lineage. Like he was the beginning of so much. I'd always thought of St. Patrick as being like almost a cartoon character because I knew so little about it. But when you're there and you see these beautiful churches, a lot of them have been rebuilt numerous times because they were built in the 400s, and so they started in the 400s, and so they started as these very humble abodes, and then they became these big things. And some of them are Protestant, and some of them are Catholic, and so it's really interesting.
Yes. One thing that makes me think about, so Ireland is the far edge of the Roman Empire at the time, and things happen at the edge that are a little different than things at the center. And so I think they're like, oh, they just do it that way over there. We kind of leave them alone, and it's hard to get out there because at the time especially. So you already are starting to bring up these aspects of Celtic Christianity. I believe your class, the Conversations class, has recently or currently in a book on Celtic Christianity. I would be interested, maybe for those who are listening that aren't familiar with this, like what have you learned through that study in Celtic Christianity?
Well, I learned that we missed the boat when we went with Augustine, 100% Augustine. We revere him. He had a tremendous amount of influence on
Western
everything that
Christianity,
happens to us now. A genius. I mean, he was a genius, but he was not into the free spirit experience, and the value of women. So Pelagius was living during this time, and it could have gone with Pelagius, and we could have had a respect for women, the sacred feminine, and we could have had respect for the earth and the Lord's creation, so that we would really care, so we would treat all living things with respect. And man, that really got stomped down by Augustine. So that's the biggest thing, I think, that I learned so far from this book. The second chapter, we just finished the second chapter, is on St. Bridget, and I just adore her because she represents all these feminine aspects of Christianity that have been ignored forever in our culture and in our churches, I think.
Yeah. So going back to your time in Ireland, I remember you're talking about how prevalent Patrick is everywhere. So
yes.
When I went to Dublin, I went to a few different cathedrals and things like that. And I remember outside of one, and I can't remember the name of which, it was this beautiful white cathedral, and I can't remember the name. But there was a plaque outside, and it said, "This is the site of St. Patrick's first baptism, where he baptized someone." So, it's everywhere.
Amazing.
There's these little plaques everywhere that say things like that. It's almost like when you go to the Holy Land or something, they're saying, "Oh, this is the site where this happened," or "This is," and so it feels like that there. There's this history there, this depth and this richness to the place, for sure. What has impressed you so much about either your writing of devotions or just reading others that other people wrote in our church?
I think that the greatest gift we can give each other is to share our insights with each other. And so I guess reading other people's devotions is just a reawareness for me about what a gift that is. The gift of writing and the gift of reading, the opportunity to do that and to create this whole experience for someone is great.
Yeah, that's great, Joy. I know you've been very excited about this project, and your excitement's been contagious. So we want to thank you for that. I think at first they were like, Lent is 40-ish days, and we're not really. We're doing it every day, so it's a little bit more than 40 because we're even on Sundays and things. At first, we were a little bit. Can we fill these dates? Were you surprised by how many people signed up and wrote devotions?
I was surprised by the variety of people who signed up. Yes, I was pleasantly surprised with how many people signed up because it takes a lot of people to make this happen, like 46 devotions or something like that. Yes, I'm just delighted with all the different people who have been willing to do this. What a gift.
It really is. Well, Joy, thank you so much for being with us on the First on Fifth podcast. Be sure to check out our devotions at firstonfifth.org or in the church newsletter. Be well.